Welcome to the first podcast. I'm Emma Grace.
And I'm Austin Gergen.
And today we are going to be talking about the 1L year. But before that,
a word from our sponsor.
If only. We're out here if you want an ad placement. No. Before that, we're going to play a really quick get to know you game. This one's going to be fun.
I was not prepared for this.
That's why it's going to be fun. Austin's going to have to describe me in 3 sentences, and I'm going to have to describe Austin in 3 sentences. So we'll see how accurate we can make this. Since I'm springing this upon Austin, I will go first. Austin Gergen is from Minnesota, then Florida, and he is married to a very hot girl. I don't know how he managed that, but she's wonderful. They have a cat together. She's into art. And now I'm explaining Natalia instead of you.
Apparently my wife is my personality.
Well, to me, she is. And me and Austin actually met during our orientation for 1L year. So we're basically law school soulmates at this point. We are in a small group together. Austin is really into YouTube and podcasts. Fun fact, he listens to them at 3 times speed because he is insane. And he is also a good cook.
There's just a lot to know, you know?
Yeah, there is. Okay, your turn.
All right. Emma Grace apparently doesn't know how to count to 3. That was about 7 or 8 sentences. So she needs to go back to kindergarten. Aside from that, she is the first Anglican that I met. And I went to a biblical studies university, or I majored in biblical studies in undergrad. So interesting that that's the case.
Now you're just making this about you. I make it about Natalia, you make it about
exactly.
you. It's fair enough.
I have to fill in. Maybe you were correct counting to 3 since you spent about 7 talking about Natalia. Emma Grace has a cat named October who goes by Toby. And there are very cute pictures of her available upon request.
Gotta pay for those, though.
Feet pics?
Yeah, her toe beans, 10 out of 10.
Toe beans. I think that's 3 sentences.
Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, we're gonna hop into it. So how we did this is me and Austin both wrote down 3 things to expect from law school, but we actually do not know each other's. So we're gonna be reacting to what each other thinks we would say to someone coming to law school, what to expect from law school. Do you want to go first?
You can go off and do the first one.
Okay. So the first one I wrote is expect people like you. And why I did that is because I've actually talked to Austin about this before. I am actually going to law school in the area that I'm from. So I already kind of have my life set up. And I don't know why I thought this, but going into law school, I thought, oh my gosh, everyone's going to be so competitive. Everyone's going to be, type A, and this is going to be intense. And while that has some truth to it, like, I'm going to law school, I should expect people like me also in law school. It's not like I'm so different. Like, it's not like that at all. Like, everyone's nice and genuine. And that's kind of the nice thing about like a solid regional schools. I feel like really everyone's smart and up to par, but it's not nearly as like competitive and scary, and people aren't as aggressive as I was expecting. So kind of setting your expectations to be like, yeah, you're going to make friends because these people are inherently interested in what you're interested in is a good thing to think about.
Yeah, and along with that, I am one of the more like competitive people. Like, I'm trying to be in that top 10%, so that way I can get a higher paying job out of law school. I'm not sure if I'm going to stay in the Knoxville area. I moved here because I like Tennessee, but like Emma Grace said, I'm from Minnesota originally and then to Florida. But I am trying to get one of those higher paying jobs out of school.
He's going to be a corporate sleaze.
Yep. People do talk about the golden handcuffs, but I like to think that I can make my way out of there.
They'll be so shiny on you. Don't you even worry.
The first thing that I brought was that there are a lot of clubs available, and you should probably only join like 1, maybe 2 of them your 1L year, because it's very easy to join and even get on the board at the end of the 1L year, at least at our school. Our class is about 140, and maybe it's different because the previous classes had to deal with COVID, so they didn't get to know each other as well. But the 1L class makes up the vast majority of the leadership for organizations next year, despite the fact that there weren't that many events being hosted or events that people even participated in.
Yeah, there's clubs for like a lot of things. In fact, Austin, why don't you share some of your positions?
I am the events chair for the Latino Law Student Association. My wife is Puerto Rican. I'm just a white guy. But
it's good vibes. I am the social chair for the Environmental Law Organization, and I am also the Law Women Delegate for our Student Council on Diversity and Inclusion. So a little bit different vibes from us, but we're besties.
I'm also the vice president of the Federalist Society chapter at our university.
Woo woo! Yes. So clubs, for sure. are a really good thing to get involved in. That's how you can really make friends outside of class. But trust me, you'll make plenty in class because you're stuck with them forever. My second one is expect the fire hydrant phenomenon. I don't know who came up with this. I don't know if someone said it during our orientation. I don't know if I came up with it. But when people are asking you, like your first semester, like, what do you feel like? I'm like, I feel like a fire hydrant is exploding in my brain because honestly, law school is not that hard. There are a few things that are like notoriously hard. I don't know if they live up to that myth, like something like rule against perpetuities, but mostly law school, like the actual material is not that hard. It's just so much at once. Like your first year, they're going to have you take in upwards 15, 16, 17, 18 hours, and you're just like learning how to read these things. And at first I was like, this isn't bad. It's like 5 pages for each class, but those 5 pages take you a lot longer than you think. And it's not to scare you. It's just like to say it's actually super easy material. It's just kind of a lot to consume at once. But the more time you put into it, it's like not that hard. You don't have to like sit there and like think it through like it's a math problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for me, and this actually leads into my next point, which was expect 8 to 10 hour days if you want to be near the top end of your class. For me, especially the first semester, I was much better at this because I was new and excited and took advantage of the energy I had because law school is new and exciting. So I was waking up at 5:45 and going to the gym at 6:30, getting on campus by about 8. And then from there, I would work 8 until 6 usually, with an hour for lunch. And that's including classes and reading. But I read before class and prepared for class. And then in class, I took notes on what the teacher was saying. And then following class, what I did was summarize everything into basically a pre-outline, which is something that we'll talk about later on. So that way I had processed the information over the course of about 2 or 3 days, multiple times. So it was able to be held on to.
My third and final one, this one might be spicy. We'll see what Austin has to say. But I said, expect your opinion to change. Now, going into law school, the political climate out there, be crazy. And I wouldn't say law school's actually that impacted by it. Like we have lunches where like people come and do talks and maybe that's a little bit more politically charged. But in class, I feel like you, at least where we go to school, like you can really express your opinion on either side of the aisle. And sometimes things feel actually quite removed from that, so much more nuanced. But you're going to come in thinking you have certain opinions, and then you're going to learn about how the law actually works, and then you might have other opinions. And a fault I've seen in some of my classmates is they come in with a specific kind of opinion, and then our professors hold a different opinion, and our professors have been doing this for years and years, and so they're kind of obvious with their bias, and they'll come out and say it, but like they've written books on it, and they know what they're talking about. And those people are just completely shut off to hearing it because they are on a certain political stance. They take a certain political stance. And at least for me, I'm trying to come into it like really open because when we're practicing law, like we're not going to be as intentional about thinking about, okay, what like repercussions does this have on like society? Like this is the time in law school to be thinking about those things. And we're surrounded by a lot of smart people with a lot of different opinions. I'm not kidding. You'll go to class at 9 a.m. and one professor will say one thing and at 10 a.m. another professor is completely disagreeing, and both are super valid, and I think you get more out of it and your opinions change more when you come in with an open mind. But Austin may disagree.
No, I think I agree with that. Generally what I try and do is like build up the opposite side as much as possible, which is nice when someone who's been talking about the subject for 20 years has the opposite side and they're way smarter than you, or at least had a lot longer time to think about it than you have. I will say, I think policy-wise, like if you're really into that, at least in our experience, criminal law was really the only one where your political preferences really mattered.
Yeah.
Other than that, you really are only talking about how the law works. Like it almost forces you to be, this is what the law is, this is how to apply it, and here are the edge cases where it could go in between. You don't really get a opportunity to be like, oh, this is right or wrong in terms of how we run things.
No, that's true. And the funny thing is you think the things would be like more contentious. Like, for example, I remember in torts class, which is like learning about basically people suing each other for harms that aren't criminal harms, learning about like emotional distress. And I think there's like a bias in our society that like it's super easy to like get money for emotional distress, but that's not actually the case. And I thought that would be like way more of like should you even be able to do that, like kind of debate, but nobody really cared. But then it'll be something as simple as like, when should you have a jury? And like people are going ham. Like it's the nuances of how the system works where the opinions actually form. It's not, you don't come in and go, am I for or against Dobbs? You come in and you're like, how does the jury work though? Yeah, so I just feel like opinions changing is a really important, and if your opinions aren't changing in law school, that might actually be not a good thing.
Yeah, I think that it's important to like have your set of principles to go on, but always be trying to think about how the new information that you're learning in a class fits into those principles, and don't think you know everything about the like box of politics that you have right now, or the box of whatever preferences you have right now, because there's new information that like splits in there are edge cases, and you should be evolving as you're going.
Absolutely. All right, hit me with your last one.
A lot of writing. So the way that you write in law school is different as well. I came from a biblical studies background, so I was actually doing a lot of writing that was pretty similar to this in terms of, it's not flowery writing, you're doing quite a bit of analysis and just trying to balance both sides. But a lot of people come in with like English backgrounds or creative writing or really love reading like flowery language, and that's not going to be rewarded in law school. What you need to do is learn how to spot the issue and then figure out what you need to apply and then apply it on both sides and then come up with a conclusion. In general, you're going to be adjusting your writing style. I have never used the bracket keys more on my keyboard than I did in the first 2 weeks of law school, and that continues to this day.
Yeah, and I will say, so my background in undergrad, I studied political science and philosophy, and I was also a philosophy tutor. And the worst was people coming in and like they're trying to argue their ideas and talk about things, but then we have to like take a whole 30 minutes out of their time to work on citations. I will say, maybe this is a hot take, but I actually like the blue book. So that's how we cite in law school. I think it just makes sense. I think it's concise. It's not as annoying. And you, at first, it's going to be so foreign. And then when you're reading, you're like, that makes sense. I know where to find this. And that's just one example of how writing changes, but I really do think it's for the better, because think about what you're going to be doing as a lawyer. Like, I feel like yes, of course you'll be doing lots of reading, but in my experience working in a law firm, it's a whole lot of writing. So it's good to like start that really as soon as you can. And hopefully if you're at a good school, they'll have a lot of resources for you to better that. But we all kind of sucked at it at first. Even if like you come in with a background that's good, like there's always room to improve. So don't get scared about it. But yeah. I mean, I got humbled by my grades a few times. I'm like, I had a 4.0 and I know philosophy. What's going on? It's like, well, actually, I write in passive voice. So that might be my first issue. I don't know.
Yeah, and teachers will have different preferences on writing styles. So just learning how to adapt to each. I had an exam where I got points off, and it was a timed exam for not including periods or like capitalizing in the wrong spot. Other professors during exams don't care at all. But you'll also have papers, and just your writing class will also have like memos and briefs and stuff that you're going to need to do. So listening to your professor on how to do that effectively is important.
It's almost like it's just like undergrad where you have to take into account preferences. That never really goes away. I think even when you have a boss at when you're working an actual law job, they're going to have preferences on how you write. And that's just, it is what it is. So you're top dog, you have to do it.
Even if you plan on being a solo practitioner, the judge is ultimately your boss too. So you have to write a certain way no matter where you are. And
there are actual like codified rules on how to write in certain circumstances. So, but anyways, that's a writing tangent. As you can tell, we're writing nerds out here. That was a good one. So now we're going to switch into, just to conclude, a do and a don't for all you prospective legal eagles out there.
I think the number one tip I have is applying to jobs earlier than you think you need to. I ended up around that top 10% like I was talking about, but I'm actually one of the last people I know to get a job because I wasn't applying to the big law jobs in November like I should have been. And then I sort of, during January, took the big law route and then didn't have enough time to reach out to all the local firms that would have had paying jobs as well.
Mine's actually really related. I said start networking as quickly as possible. So your 1L semester, I think it's totally fine to be focused on your grades. Like I wasn't involved in many clubs. I wasn't doing a lot of like lunches. I wasn't that involved in like the environment at law school. I wasn't really going out with people or anything like that. I was just really focused on my grades. But that extra time I did have, I was reaching out to people, asking them what they thought I should do, asking if they knew someone that was hiring, and I feel like that put me in a good position to get a job quickly. And so it's really important to network, and I'm not saying that you should do that over getting good grades, because ultimately good grades, unfortunately, matter because of the curve, but we'll talk about that another time. But anyways, yeah, so I just think networking is super important. And that was something kind of crazy between me and Austin, because I'm not in the top 10%, but I'm from here and I just know people. And so I got a job because my resume speaks to like me being very loyal to this area, and we're kind of in more of a small town environment, as to where Austin is much better academically, but because he didn't have those connections, I think people were a little more sus to give him an interview. You just never know. When you that is one thing about law school. It's like when you commit to a regional school, you have to show that you like that region. That's the nice thing about like Yale, Harvard, like you go there and you're solid. But if you're at UT, they like you to be a UT girly, if you will.
Just alongside that, one of the other things I'll add is that go to your like local bar meeting. Every major city will have like a bar association. So we have the Knoxville Bar Association here at the University of Tennessee. And that's a good opportunity to meet practicing lawyers. And I started going to those once the second semester started, but I really wish I went to one or two before, so that way I was able to make those connections before application season rolled around. And it didn't seem like I was just talking to people because I wanted a job.
Right. Yeah. They do be sniffing that out sometimes. My do not is do not be that person. So what I mean is, like I was saying, I think everyone in law school is actually very nice and genuine and wonderful, and just expect a bunch of yous. But there are people that are a little bit more intense than others. There are people that are a little bit more show-offy. I mean, it is a naturally competitive environment. But the thing is like, nobody's impressed. And also, like, I think the best advice I've ever gotten is, like, especially when you go to a really good regional school, you know, a lot of us will probably end up in the East Coast area. And the law community is smaller than you think. And, you know, if I get a phone call from some of these people, I'm going to be more like, I guess I'll help you, but you're kind of a jerk. Like, you're starting your law reputation now. So it's really important to not be that person. And like, I don't even understand why people try to impress professors, because you're anonymously graded at the end of the day. Like, I think it's better to be a real person to your professors and make a friendship connection and then move on in life. And, you know, your anonymous grade is your anonymous grade, rather than try to impress your professor. Then your professor thinks you're a jerk because you're not impressive. Nobody thinks you're impressive. And then you kind of set yourself up to like not be someone that people want as an associate or partner.
My don't skip your readings. I think, at least for me, like I said earlier, doing the readings, going over them multiple times is the best way to actually learn the nuances of the rule. Our school gives us access to a website called Quimby, which gives you like pre-made summaries of everything, but you don't catch the nuances when you're reading that. They give you like one rule that applies, when in reality there are 3 or 4 rules, and you can balance the different things on both sides. So if you actually do the reading, you're more prepared, and that helps you with your writing and your exam taking, because you learn how lawyers write instead of just reading outlines that other people made.
Yeah, absolutely. And along those lines, it actually kind of annoys me because we have professors that give more readings than others, and people will complain. And while, you know, it's warranted, like I said, the fire hydrant effect is real. It's like, well, do you not expect to be reading that much when you're a lawyer? Like, they're like, man, 30 pages tonight. And I'm like, okay, but you're going to have 30 pages from your client. You're going to want to read those real close. Like, we're developing a skill of reading and writing more than anything. I mean, I think if I've gotten any really good advice from a lawyer that stuck with me is, yeah, law school's important and passing the bar is important, but ultimately you're learning how to read a lot and write a lot, because that's all you're going to be doing every single day, and you need to get faster and better and more efficient and more detailed. And then it's not to like scare you and be like, ooh, boo, scary law. I'm just saying that like the readings are the readings, and they're hard, but I think they're honestly the most rewarding part. Like, you get the grade that you want when you put into the readings. You get the skills that you want when you put in the readings, and you get that connection with the professor because they can tell you're trying. So this episode was kind of more of a technical one, kind of our advice geared towards people that aren't in school. Hopefully a few people from school are listening and having a little giggle and agreeing with what we're saying. And hopefully we'll Next time, we're going to do a little bit more fun ones. I think we want to do more geared towards current law students as well. This is just kind of an intro so you get to know us and our experience. And then maybe we'll have some fun guests. I don't know. We'll see who we can wrap into this. But yeah, expect the next few episodes to be more fun, more relationship based. And then we're going to touch back on more technical parts of law school for those that are interested. Like we said, like the curve, cold calls, anonymous grading, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what you can expect in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, so be sure to follow us on your podcast platform of choice. Leave a review. I hear that is super helpful in helping us get out there.
Yeah, what else do influencers say? Oh, follow us on Instagram. You know where to find us.
Trialanderror.pod.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. EmmaGrace.t on the Insta. What's yours? Just Austin Gergen?
Yeah.
Austin Gergen on the Insta. And if you follow within 24 hours, I will send you Toby feet pics for free. This was the podcast. Goodbye.